I'm gonna show you shot by shot how to win in pickleball. This is the easiest way to understand the strategy. Whether you're brand new to pickleball or you're a more advanced player, this video is gonna be worth watching. Every pickleball point starts with a serve, so the strategy here is highly important. The goal of the serve is simple. You wanna do what you can to get an easier return so that you have less trouble with your third shot. But how do you do that? The main factors on our serve are power, depth, and spin. Depth is gonna be the most important if you wanna hit your serves effectively. So I want you to watch these two serves and tell me which one you think is better. If you said the second serve is better, you're right. By hitting the serve farther in the box or deeper in the box, you make it a lot more challenging on your opponent to hit a good return. So I generally recommend on your serves to try to aim for the back third of the box. So I wouldn't aim for the very back because then you have the chance of missing the ball long. But by aiming for the back third right here, you give yourself a good shot to get it nice and deep. By doing this, you force them to have to start from farther back, so it takes them a lot longer to get to the kitchen. So when I hit deep like this, he has a lot less time after the bounce to prepare to hit a good return. And when I serve it short like this, it's easier for him to move forward, and he has more time to hit a good return. If you struggle to hit your serves deep, know that depth comes from a combination of power and height. So getting the ball deeper isn't always just about hitting the ball harder. A lot of the time, adding a few feet to your serve over the net is gonna be what it takes to get the ball deeper. And once you get comfortable hitting consistently deep serves with topspin, you can start to experiment with mixing it up with different spins like the screwball where I go side spin like this. And you can even get a little bit more particular with where you're aiming your topspin. A lot of the time I like to try to go to my opponent's backhand, so I'll aim more to the side of the box and force them to hit a backhand return like this. A lot of players just have a weaker backhand return, so this is a way that you can get shorter returns and make your third shot easier. As you already know, deep serves are tough to return well. But don't worry, because I'm gonna teach you how to deal with these difficult serves later in the video. Usually though, regardless of what you do on your serve, your opponent will probably make the return most of the time. So the strategy of the third shot, or the shot that you hit after the serve, is one of the most important in pickleball. Remember, you have to let the third shot bounce. So this has a huge impact on how we look at the strategy. But what's the goal of the third shot? It's very unlikely that you use this shot to win the point. The goal of this shot is to hit it effectively so that you can move forward without getting killed. To do this, you want to make sure your opponents have to hit the ball up. So if your opponents are hitting the ball down at you, let's say you give them a nice high ball and they can go like this, it's going to be very challenging for you to move forward. On the other hand, if your opponents have to hit the ball up over the net, that makes it a lot easier for you to move forward through that next shot and make your way to the kitchen. So let me show you some examples. If I give my opponent a nice high ball, it's gonna be very hard for me to move forward, like I just said. But if I can get him to make contact with the ball at the height of the net or lower, it becomes a lot easier for me to move forward effectively. So the two main ways to hit your third shot are with a drive, where we hit it hard like a tennis shot. So a drive looks like this. Or with a drop, where I'm intentionally trying to hit the ball into the kitchen, right? So I'm trying to get the ball to land in front of my opponent so they don't have an easy time hitting a volley like that. An important thing to note is that the drop is more of an advanced shot. So if you're at the 3-0 to 4-0 level, there's a very good chance that most of your opponents prefer to use the drive where they go hard on the third shot. That said, being able to use the drop is a necessity to play at a high level. So when I hit the third shot drive, the main two things I'm trying to do are keep the ball low and hit it relatively hard. Ideally, I want the ball to dip down a little at my opponent's feet so they have to hit it up. So let's see how that looks. So there, I was able to get my drive nice and low, which forced Drew to pop the ball up and it allowed me to move forward. So a bad example would look like this. You see, if I go for a drive and I hit it too high, I'm essentially just giving my opponent an easy shot. So it's imperative that you keep the ball low when you go for your drive. A cool play that you can actually run on your third shot drive is targeting the returning player as they're running in, because they may not actually have made it to the kitchen by the time you're hitting the shot. So I'll show you how that looks. So you see, with my drive there, I was able to get it really low at his feet, and he wasn't able to actually take it out of the air. And if you like the strategy of targeting the returning player with your drive, make sure to like this video. It'll get shown to more people and it'll help grow the game. Moving on to the third shot drop, the goal of the drop is to make the ball land towards the back part of the kitchen, so this area, so that your opponents have to hit the ball up. So using a good drop and a point looks like this. See how by getting the ball to land in front of them, it allowed me to move forward? The ball also travels slower, which gives me more time to move in. Now let's see a bad example. There, I obviously hit the ball way too high. So you can see that the drop is a shot that requires a lot of accuracy, which is why it's a little bit tougher to get the hang of. So if you have trouble using the third shot drop, what you can do is a cool play called the drive drop combo that looks like this. So all I did there was a drive on the more difficult shot on my third shot from farther back. And then because I got a shorter ball on my fifth shot or the next shot, I was able to use a drop because it's a little bit easier. This play is an awesome way to learn how to use the drop if you're not comfortable doing so from the back of the court. If you can hit these types of third shots, the fourth shot's gonna be very difficult for your opponent. But I have a whole section on fourth shots coming up, so stay tuned. In order to prevent your opponents from scoring though with their serve and third shots, you need to have a bulletproof return. Your return starts with where you're standing. I see a lot of players that are hugging the baseline on their return, standing about right here. But like I just said, your opponent's goal is to hit their serve nice and deep. So if your opponent is hitting their serve consistently deep, what you want to do is give yourself some space and stand a little bit farther back. If they're not hitting it deep, you can stand a little bit closer. You definitely don't want to stand right on the baseline. I'd say 3 feet behind the baseline is probably the optimal place to be standing on your return. And the harder they're serving, you can even back up a little bit more. And this gives you the ability to move forward through your return. So I want you to watch these two returns and tell me which one you think looks better. If you said 2, you're correct. Because 1, you never want to take a big swing on your return. So by moving forward through the shot, you can bunt it a little bit more and use a smaller, more compact motion. And 2, by moving forward, you actually can make your way to the kitchen faster, which is the main goal after your return. So you always want to move forward through your return and make your way to the kitchen as fast as possible. The faster you can get right behind the kitchen in this position, the better. If your opponent's hitting really short, slow serves, you can use your normal drive, but the reason we use slice is because when your opponent's hitting harder, deeper serves, it makes it easier to absorb their power. And it also, when you use slice, keeps the ball in the air longer, which gives you more time to move forward. When we think about where we're hitting our return, just like on our serve, depth is the most important factor. So by hitting my return deep, I just make it so much more challenging for them to hit a good third shot. You can also try to take your return more towards the middle, which can confuse your opponents and lessens your chances of missing the ball wide. The main thing though is that you adjust to your opponent's serves so that you can get your returns consistently deep. So if Drew's hitting his serve super deep and hard, I need to make sure that I'm back a little bit on every return so that I'm in the right position to get my returns nice and deep. If you guys have a favorite spot to aim your returns that I didn't go over, let me know in the comment section. All right, on to the fourth shot. So we've arrived at the kitchen after our return. We're in our athletic stance and our paddle is up. As a returning team though, what's our goal now? You want to keep your opponents back. And the way you do this is by hitting penetrating shots right at your opponent's feet. So what you don't want to do is pop the ball up on their third shot so that they can move forward. You also generally don't want to hit the ball short so that they can move in. You want to do what you can to get your shots right at these targets. So you're generally aiming at the depth of your opponent's feet, but out of their strike zone to the sides of their body. And as they start to move forward, the targets move forward with them. Because if I try to go deep when he's standing right here, he's actually just going to get an easy volley out of the air. So we want the ball to be nice and low at his feet so we get him off balance. So at an actual point, I'm going to move in quickly after my return and try to get that fourth shot right at my opponent's feet. So you'll see in that example, my opponent went for a really hard drive. So when your opponent goes for a hard drive and you're forced to hit a volley, you always want to try to keep a firm wrist so you can get that ball back at them with pace. When he uses a drive, you actually can use their power against them by holding your paddle with a firm wrist. If your opponents were to go for a slower third shot, you can take more of a swing and use a topspin roll volley. What's important though, is that you look for gaps in the court and you target them with the appropriate technique given what your opponent used on their third shot. So there, I used a roll volley because he had a slower third shot, he went for a drop, and I targeted the middle because I saw an open gap in that section of the court. There I used a firmer wrist volley and just went right at his feet because he used a drive and I didn't see a huge open section of the court. All right, now we're at the exciting part where I teach you how to take control of the point and win. But before I teach you that, I want to say that 80% of you watching this are not subscribed to our channel. If you want to keep improving your game, subscribe so you see our new videos. Our last section is going to be a quick one, but this is where the magic really happens. There's two main ways that the point progresses after the fourth shot. At a higher level, usually you end up in a dinking situation. At a lower level, generally things become more of a firefight. Regardless of what you end up doing though, the goal is the same. You want to work the point by getting your opponents out of position so that you get an easier shot to end the point. Let's see some examples. In that example, I took too much of a swing on that hard volley, which caused me to miss it in the net. In that example, my opponent used a drive, so I used my firm volley and went out to the gap on the side of the court, which my opponent wasn't ready to cover. So in that example, the rally turned into more of a firefight. My opponents were playing more like bangers. So what I did to counter that was use my firm volleys and move them around until I got an easier shot to finish the point. So there, my opponent went for a drop, which was actually pretty good, but he didn't move in very fast. So I was able to use my roll right at his feet, which made it pretty much impossible for him to use his reset to get it into the kitchen. So in that example, I used my dinks to get Drew off balance, which gave me a slightly higher ball that I could accelerate on. Like I said, as you get better and better, and you get into more of an advanced playing style, you're gonna get into more and more dinking rallies. In order to get there though, you need to be able to consistently hit the ball into the kitchen, which I explain how to do in this video.